Hi, everybody. My name is Annie Bond. I'm a technical writer for Red Hat, and I have been doing documentation since 2011. Doesn't really feel like, 9 years have passed, but it is what it is. And so I wanted to talk about documenting the end of life of a product at Red Hat called Red Hat Network. It was being replaced by another product called Red Hat Subscription Management. And for those of you who are familiar with Red Hat's model, know that our income comes from subscriptions for support. And so the reach of these applications hit everybody who uses Red Hat products. And so when I was hired, they had about 2 more years on the old subscription model, again called Red Hat Network, that users were going to have to get through whether they wanted to or not. And so in the entirety of my technical writing career, I had been doing documents about products that were moving forward. And so I found that challenging and, exceptional in the fact that instead of doing documentation about a product that was continuing to grow, continuing to add more features, needing extra support, we were going backwards in time. We were taking away bits of the product piece by piece. And so there were different documentation needs and different audience needs. And so I'm going to peek at my notes here because, I'm shy and want it for support. But the different documentation needs included having a process that existed outside of the standard agile development process. The new product had, every 2-week iteration, and you documented based on what was coming. But in the process of end-of-lifing a product, that was different. It had to be updated more on the fly. You had to come up with the language more on the fly, and you had to be willing to be the bad guy. Because this was a choice that our users weren't making. We were making it for them. We were looking at enterprise level customers and saying, hey, we know this process is going to be difficult and long and expensive and may require training on your part. And so we talked about empathy here already, but it required a higher level of empathy for your customers who may have understood the product and they didn't need documentation support in that way, but they needed somebody to be able to come in and help them get through it. They needed somebody who was willing to understand that this was a difficult process. And one of the reasons I talked about going backwards in time as far as documentation goes is one of the ways I felt like I succeeded in doing this for my customers is that I was looking at the old ways that they used to do their subscription management and tried to model the new documentation while this was end-of-lifing to most closely model how their processes worked at that same time, even if there wasn't perfect feature parity, even if there wasn't, even if there was something new to add. And finally, it required a much more intensive level of interaction with people who are in marketing, because one of the things you have to talk about in your documentation while you're being a bad guy is trying to push up the new product and getting users excited about the new things they might be able to do with the new product instead. And so to keep things consistent, we had to talk to marketing and some of the internal marketing procedures. And so I think I think it's important to keep in mind that this is a different documentation need altogether because you're working backwards. And so that's the takeaway I wanted to give. And although I have 30 seconds, I am done.